What's up everyone, Dan here. Welcome back to my channel. Before I start with today's video, I want to say thank you guys so much for helping me reach 100 subscribers on YouTube. This is, to me, it's really amazing. Okay, so I want to thank you guys so much for helping me out. We're now at 101 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for your support. Now back to the tutorial. So today I'm gonna obviously you guys see in the title and the thumbnail, you guys already know who the artist, but today we are going to look into how to draw like SamDoesArt. Now, who is SamDoesArt? Well, basically SamDoesArt, or his real name Sam Young, is a artist based on Toronto, Canada. Now, I cannot really find a lot of information about him, but all I know is that he is incredibly talented. He is incredibly popular on Instagram and on YouTube. He have a YouTube channel. If you guys want to check his channel out, I'll leave it in the description down below. Now, that's all I can say about him because I really don't know who he is, on a personal level. All I can say is his real name and which country is he based at. Anyways, now in this video I will be doing kind of a speed paint. I know in my previous videos I don't want to do it, but I kind of have to push myself to do it considering that I already have 100 people watching me. So this is me pushing myself to do something I don't really like or really comfortable with. So I hope you guys can take it easy on my speed paint because I'm still very nervous when painting and then seeing the timer. There's a time limit, there's the kind of time going on. So yeah, anyways, I won't be talking a lot. I'll be allowing you guys to kind of immerse yourself into my digital painting, but I will be telling you guys tips along the way. So without further ado, we can start off with the first tip. Now, the first step to drawing like SamDoesArt is fundamentals. Now, when I say fundamental, I know usually in my previous video I see reference and stuff like that, but I don't want to make a video where every single artist that I cover on, I give you guys the same tip. I want to give you different tips, not only catered to the specific artist that I'm doing, like example Ross draws, but I also want to have an example that can be applied depending on no matter what type of artist you're trying to replicate. So the first step is fundamentals. Now, when I say fundamentals, I mean like your sketch and your types of references and stuff like that. So your references influence your sketch. Like your sketch and your references are your foundation. If you cannot get your sketch correct, you basically cannot get the best of what the actual painting will look like. And believe me, it took me about 30 to 45 minutes before recording this video just so I can fix up the small mistakes that I have during the sketch. Now, the reason in this video you don't see it is because I didn't record it, because I don't want the video to get way too long than it already is. This entire speed paint is sped up by ×4. It's around an hour plus, which is usually the same time that Sam always draw. He always draw in about an hour plus, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so fundamentals, like I say, your references, the type of references you collect and the type of references you use can influence your foundation and your sketch. If your sketch is bad, your final product is bad. So finding good references means good lighting, good colors, good values, all that kind of stuff. That the good lighting, the shadows and stuff that brings that you can see the form of the shape of the face, the shape of the face and stuff like that. I'm repeating my words twice, but anyways, yeah. So finding good references, using the good references, and then spend time sketching it, spend time making your sketch good That way you won't have trouble fixing small little mistakes that you have during your painting. Okay, so that's step 1. I'll get back to step 2 in a little bit. Alright, and I am back to give you guys step number 2. I hope you guys have been enjoying the speed paint while listening to the music and stuff. Anyways, for colors. Now, colors, you got to understand how to put base colors, you got to understand how to block colors, and you got to understand how to pick your skin tone. Now, before I get into any of it, I want to say this. Whenever you are coloring your painting, never ever take the colors from the reference directly, especially in Photoshop. Now, in Krita, you can do that. Like, what I mean by that is, like, you can take colors from the reference just like in Photoshop, but I do not recommend you do that. What I do recommend is that you pick the colors yourself from the color wheel and not from the reference. Now, the reason for this is because if you take the colors from the reference itself, you are not learning anything about colors because you're just picking what you see. Now, if you actually pick from the color wheel and try to figure out what kind of colors that makes it look like the original reference, it teaches you how to pick your colors correctly, which is something I feel like you should do, because that's the only way you can grow as an artist, is to learn. You got to learn to pick your own colors. You got to learn how to blend different colors, how to complement different colors, and all of that. All of that is really important. So if you can, try to avoid picking colors directly from the reference. Now, whenever you want to color, always start with the base color. Now, the base color solves a few issues. First few issues is if you just go in and do the dark shading, shadows, light, and all that kind of stuff, sometimes you could miss certain spots, and that spot is the color of your background, whatever color of your background you put. So if your color of background is white, which I don't really recommend putting your color background with white, usually go for a slightly grayish kind of color, or anything that is not white or fully black. Now, putting down base colors solve the issues of missing certain spots. So sometimes when you draw or you paint, you sometimes do a brush stroke, but then you don't fully cover that area. So that little spots can be covered if you do your base colors first. Now, color blocking is the only time you would use it. You can still use it in your painting, but usually when you're doing color blocking is when you are essentially starting out without a sketch. So if you're coloring without a sketch, that is the perfect time to do color blocking. You can still do color blocking on your painting with a sketch. It's still very effective, if it's very efficient to do it, because then you can color blocking also helps you sharpen up the the shape of the face, the shape of the structure itself. So color blocking is mostly used when you're not using reference, which is most artists do that nowadays. Now, for skin tone is a little bit tricky because different people have different skin tone, and trying to pick a color skin tone similar to what you have envisioned, or a skin tone color that you are following based on the reference, it can be tricky, but try your best. Usually I'll go for slightly in between orange and red. So if you can go in between orange and red, you would most likely get a skin tone color. That's all I have for tip number 2. I will see you guys in tip number 3 later on. Alright, and we are back, and I'm gonna give you guys tip number 3. Now, tip number 3 to painting like Sam does art is values. Now, what is values? Values are basically how dark or how light that given color or hue is. So what I mean by that, usually values determines your structure's depth. Like let's say you're painting the face, adding values to your painting really makes your painting look 3D, makes your painting look real. So understanding values is not easy because values are kind of the same as learning lights and shadow in my previous video. So you got to understand where the light is coming from, how does it affect the structure or the thing that you are painting. For example, if let's say you are drawing or painting a human face, you got to understand where the light is coming from and how does that affect the face. So if the light is coming from my left side, how does it affect the face in terms of shadow? Like, where do I put my shadow? Well, obviously you put your shadow on your right side. Now, values is more than just that, because you got to understand a lot of things. Like light does not just, shadows does not just become full black. Like, whenever you are doing shadows, there will also be reflective light. Those lights are important to making your painting look real. In my previous video, it is called global illumination, where light bounces off different surface of objects onto your skin. Therefore, you add those behind your shadow. So those are the few things that you need to keep in mind when trying to kind of add values into your painting. So understanding values can really make your painting look 3D. So to really learn it, all you got to learn is where the light is coming from, how does it affect the object, and then you got to remember your core shadow, your reflective light. You got to your obedient shadow, which is the shadow that is casted from the object itself. So there's a lot of things you need to learn when you are trying to add values. Yeah, so I'll get back to you guys on tip number 5. Working every night till the sunrise. Alright, so for tip number 4, I don't really remember right now, but for the next step, right, the next step that I want to give you guys is hair and eyes. Now, this is something that is really important in terms of replicating Sam Young or SamDoesArt, art style, because his art style is stylized, which means he combined the essence of realism with kind of cartoonish fundamentals, which means like he make the eye bigger, he make the hair more, he make the hair look like it can never exist in real life. So his art style is more stylized. Now, when you're doing eyes, not just eyes, when you're doing eyes, nose, the mouth, and the ears, there's a few things that can be changed and a few things that cannot be changed. The few things that can be changed is obviously the nose, the eyes, the mouth, and the ears. Those things, if you change and make it stylized, it can work. But there are other few things that you cannot change because it just simply doesn't work. For example, over exaggerating human expression, meaning if the mouth is if the person is surprised and you make them open their mouth too wide, that it looks unrealistic, it looks fake. So there are a few things that you gotta keep in mind on what you can and cannot change. Now, the tip for eyes and hair, because these are the two tips that personally I am having a lot of trouble with, because I really cannot draw any of this. Now, the tip for the eyes that I can give you guys is never draw one side of the eye. You got to draw both sides at the same time. So when you do one changes on the right side, you got to do the exact same changes on the left side. That is something you got to keep in mind. And then another tip that I want to give you guys is your teardrop, the area where your tears come out. Yes, you got to ensure that those lines connect. So which means that you cannot have one side, you cannot have your left eye higher than the right eye. If not, then the teardrop, that area, right, doesn't it's not a straight line. So you got to remember that your eyes are always in a straight line, and a good indicator to know if you're in a straight line or not is to look at the teardrop. If the teardrop is off, then meaning your eye is either too high or too low. So that is something you got to keep in mind. Now, when coloring eye, you got to remember not to put full white, because using bright white makes your eye look like you have flashlight in them. So that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is pick an off-white, which is kind of close to white but not really, and then you want to shade it with a tint of grey and some other colors depending on the environment. If the environment you are in is outside with bright sunny day and stuff, then you want to add a little bit of blue and a little bit of any colors that your character is kind of close by with, any close by light source that your character might be in. So that is something you got to kind of remember. Now, the last thing I want to give you guys for eyes is whenever you're doing your characters either in the third, fourth view, or front view or side view, or a quarter view and that kind of stuff, you got to remember the amount of space left in your eyeball. What I mean by that is your pupils will not go too far off. What I mean by that, if let's say you're facing 3/4 and then your character is looking the left side, so when you are drawing it, you don't draw the eye closest to the camera way far off, because the second eye can only be seen partly because it's in the third, fourth view. So you got to keep in mind that your eyes move together, so you cannot put one far away from each other. That is something you got to keep in mind. Now, okay, last few tips before I move on to the hair. This is about the eyes that I just want to kind of add. Your eye, like how far do you put your eye is basically how wide you make one eye. So when you're drawing eyes, ensure that the in between both of the eye, you can draw like an oval and see how, and you must make sure it matches. What I mean by that is when you draw the left eye, you draw an oval or an almond shape for the left eye, you got to ensure that the almond shape fits in between your left and your right eye. So that is something you can learn when drawing eyes, and how far apart you want your eyes to. That is kind to measure how far your eyes is. Now for hair is really hard and tricky to do, especially for me. What I can give you guys, what tip I can give you guys is hair, you gotta think it just the same way you do for skin. You don't paint strands of hair, but you paint blocks of hair. So you block out each part of the hair with the base color, and then you slowly build it up. And then once you have everything done, including the lights and the shadow, then you can add little small strands of hair. And when adding those, don't go too overboard, because then it makes your it makes your painting look like messy. So add strands of hair, but don't add too much. So that is something you got to remember. Now that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching to this video. I hope you guys enjoy. Yeah, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Please subscribe. My next goal is to reach 200, so I hope we can reach that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.